I'm Harrison Graham, and you are watching the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. By the way, before we jump into this mailbag, Chiefs Draft Hats, chatsports.com/Chiefs Draft Hats. They're pretty cool. We'll show you guys pictures of a couple of them later on, but that's where you can purchase chatsports.com/Chiefs Draft Hats. All right, let's go to Laura Ortiz with the Super Chat. He says, trade for an old draft crush, Terrace Marshall Jr., who was a day 2 pick for the Carolina Panthers a few years ago. He's had some injury problems. I liked him coming out of LSU, a guy who can win some jump balls as a vertical threat, but he hasn't really been productive in the NFL. Late round pick for him? Sure. I wouldn't probably give more than a 6th, but he would probably be like a number 4, number 5 type of wide receiver here. Dale Webb Jr. with a $10 Super Chat. He asks, trade 2 first-round picks and a player for Nick Bosa. Look, we talked about this on a mailbag last week. Nick Bosa in Kansas City would be awesome, but would the Niners actually trade him? I doubt it, unless he asked for an outrageous contract and they wouldn't pay it. But, yeah, I think that trade value is probably what you're looking at. 2 firsts, maybe more. So the idea of him and Chris Jones together is fascinating and fun. Is it realistic? I don't think it really is. Ryan says, how about trading Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a 7th and draft a new running back in the later rounds? Appreciate the Super Chat, Ryan. Yeah, I mean, I've said it for the entire offseason. I would trade Edwards-Helaire for anything. If any team is willing to send anything for him, I would take it. And that's not me trying to slight CEH. I just think it hasn't worked out here. And if you can get even a very late pick like a 7th and, clear out $2 million or so, which is what it would save you in cap to trade him, I think that's worth doing. And I think it's worth for him too. He needs a kind of a reboot, I think, with the new team. And yeah, we saw Veach proved it last year, finding Pacheco in the 7th round, that you could just find someone late in the draft that can be a rotation guy at minimum. Baby Shark, I saw teams have called about Brandon Aiyuk. How interested would you be? We haven't talked to Aiyuk on the Chiefs Report. It's fun idea. The Chiefs and Niners have dealt with each other before. Obviously, they sent D Ford to San Francisco after that fraud jumped off sides in the AFC Championship game, which cost the Chiefs another Super Bowl appearance, but that's neither here nor there. But Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, listen, he'd probably be your best receiver right now if you got him. I think Kadarius Toney has equal, if not more, potential, but Ayuk's been consistent. He had over 1,000 yards last year with the 49ers. He's familiar with playing with an elite tight end like Travis Kelce, as he has done that with George Kittle. So, yeah, I'd be open to it. It would probably cost you 31 and maybe a 3rd or a 4th, like maybe a late day 2, early day 3 pick. I'd be open to it potentially. I like Brandon Aiyuk. You'd have to be prepared to pay him, though, so keep that in mind. Would you trade for Brandon Aiyuk? Type Y for yes, N for no. Pinned comment on today's show. Let me know. Y for yes, N for no. ZEZ with the Super Chat says, appreciate the content. Super hype for the NFL Draft. Thank you, and go Chiefs. We're excited as well. Appreciate all the support. Subscribe if you haven't already. From Blake Haley, out of all the wide receivers in this draft class, who do you think fits the best? I would probably say JSN because he's a crisp route runner. Jackson Smith and Jigba, you can line him up in the slot and he can do that. Other receivers that have fit the Chiefs mold in the past, I would say, are like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. Smaller, quicker guys. But I personally would like to get a different look at receiver. Like, I think Quentin Johnston at 6'3", 215 could be interesting, right? A bigger guy that can give you some yards after the catch as well. The Chiefs haven't really had that at receiver much in Patrick Mahomes' tenure here. You already have plenty of smaller, speedy guys, Tony, Sky Moore. You had Tyreek Hill. You had McCole Hardman. Like, they've had those guys. I'd like to get a different wrinkle in here. Guy later in the draft, A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. He would be interesting. But, yeah, those are a couple of thoughts on that position. Evan Fullerton, Darnell Washington at 31 if available. It's funny. Producer Sam and I were talking about this before the show today. Could tight end be an option at 31? And I kind of shot it down, but the more I've thought about it is if there's not a receiver you love there and if there's not a player at a position of need that you love there and you don't find a trade down, I'm not opposed to drafting one of the tight ends here. Darnell Washington, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, because it's such a good tight end draft. And if you want to start thinking long term, Travis Kelce, I think, has still several years left, but he's not going to play at this level forever. You could find a 10 to 12 year starting caliber tight end in this draft. So, yeah, I'm open to the idea of it, Evan. Darnell Washington is an intriguing one right now because I think as a rookie, tight end 2 role for him is perfect because he's a great blocker. Kelson could be that receiving guy, and, you can use him in the red zone some. Hayden Shepard, let's trade up for Addison. Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to get a receiver like Addison, Smith-Njigba, or Johnson, you'd probably have to trade up. There's been some chatter that Addison could slide, but still don't think he gets to 31. So, yeah, if you want to get him, you'd probably have to move up at least into the 20s. We mentioned it off the top. Chiefs draft hats available. Chatsports.com/Chiefs draft hats. I like the styles this year. You got the red ones, the white ones, the logos kind of creeping through the text there. I'm a big fan of that. You got the NFL logo on the side. And here's the cool thing, too. Both these color schemes, this one and then this next one, all available in baseball-style flat bill, curve bill, and snapbacks. 3 different styles for both kind of designs there, if you will. All at that same link below. Pick one up today. Draft is a month away. Chatsports.com/Chiefs draft hats. Let's go. Represent Chiefs Kingdom as the draft is in Kansas City. Jared Neal, any news about McKinnon? Just hoping Kansas City re-signs him soon. There's no new news, but remember McKinnon didn't sign, I think, until right around training camp last year. So, he might allow the Chiefs to go through the draft and see if they draft a running back that would be an RB2 type behind Pacheco, and, then make a decision after that. I could see the Chiefs and McKinnon waiting until after the draft. But I would like to bring him back. I think he's a great change of pace guy next to Pacheco. He knows his role. He catches the ball well. He can pick up the blitz. So, yeah, I'm a big McKinnon guy. I hope he's back. I think he'd like to be back, and I think the Chiefs would like to have him back. Freddie Martinez here. Can the Chiefs go 17-0 if they get DeAndre Hopkins? Look, I don't want to say they can or can't. Could they? I think they could. I just think there's a mental toll that takes place for teams that chase stuff like this. We saw it with the Patriots. We saw it with the Warriors when they got to 73 wins, and then they kind of ran out of steam in the playoffs because you just put so much into every game. And obviously, like in the NFL, you play once a week, so you can do that a little bit more, but it's still just 8-0, 9-0, 10-0. I almost like it when the Chiefs lose early in a season. It was frustrating as hell when they lost to the Colts, but then this idea kind of just goes away, right? It's like, well, we're not chasing immortality anymore, so let's just go out and play. So, I think they could do it. I think they could do it more than any other team could, but you're playing professional teams every week, man. It is hard to win every week, especially when most teams are giving you their best because they know they got to play their best to compete with the Chiefs. How many wins for the Chiefs next season? What do you guys think? 17-game schedule. We'll just base it on the regular season. Without seeing the week-to-week schedule yet, I'll say they're 13 to 14 win team again, probably. They'll drop a game they shouldn't. They're really good at that. They'll probably lose a division game or so at some point, and then, they'll lose one of those 50-50 games. 14-3, that's kind of what they've been. So let me know. How many wins for Kansas City? Evan Fullerton is, if Bijan is available, you got to draft him, right? If he falls to 31, I think you at least have to consider it, but I like Pacheco a lot, man, and obviously Bijan is much more talented than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I do wonder if the Chiefs would hesitate just for the simple fact of the last time we took it back in the first round, it did not work out, and you don't have to force the issue at running back. So, look, if he's there at 31, it's under consideration, but I don't think he's someone you trade up for if you're Kansas City, and even if he is there at 31, I would almost rather start a bidding war for a team who wants to get him on that fifth-year option in the last year, in the last pick of the first round, because remember, first-round picks, you get that fifth-year option, and for a running back, teams would like to have that and, have an extra year of team control over that player. Dale Webb with the super chat, appreciate it. He says, would you send a third? I think he meant would you send a third and a fourth for D-Hop? I probably still would. I know it's probably an overpay based on the market, but Hopkins, when fully healthy, still might be a top 10 receiver in the league. You add him to that offense that you already have. I mean, you got 10 draft picks. You got some ammunition to move if you need to. So I would consider it. I would definitely just send a third. I would prefer to not send a second pick, but I would have to consider it, Dale Webb. Make sure you guys subscribe. Join our live weekly mailbags every Monday to get on the show. That's when we film these on our live shows on Monday. So subscribe, turn on the notifications. Never miss a video here on the Chiefs Report. Christopher Stockholm, this may be a stretch, but do you think the Chiefs would trade for Ronnie Stanley? I don't think they would trade for Orlando Brown from the Ravens and then turn around a few years later and trade for Ronnie Stanley. Yeah, you said it. I do think that's a stretch. Richard Martin, Deuce Vaughn from K-State in place of CEH. Yeah, I mean, different type of player, but yeah, I like he's an example of if the draft comes and goes and you get Deuce Vaughn, then you probably don't re-sign McKinnon in that scenario. Maybe you still do if you dump CEH. Maybe you go Pacheco, McKinnon, Vaughn, and that's your kind of three-head horse. I could still see that being a scenario, but Vaughn does similar things to McKinnon, right? Like he catches the ball well. He's good at everything, not great at anything. But yeah, I like Vaughn quite a bit. I think, fourth round and beyond, I would be open to taking him. Go On Gaming, Marcus Peters reunion. That would surprise me. Things didn't end great with Peters in Kansas City. The Chiefs have a lot of corners, so I don't think that would happen. Student Carson, if the Chiefs want a fast wide receiver, they should look at Trey Palmer. What are your thoughts on him? I got to look at him more, to be honest, Student Carson. If I want just a straight speed guy, I'd probably look at Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. I don't know if he'd fall to you the 63. 31 feels a little rich, maybe a trade down scenario, but he'd be the burner I would look at. Tatum Floyd, what do you think about Chiefsaholic? I put out a YouTube short on the channel. If you guys haven't seen the story, I mean, it's honestly, it's unbelievable. So, kind of just go back into the old time machine here. So, if you don't know who Chiefsaholic is, he's kind of the crazy super fan who dresses up like the Chiefs wolf, yada, yada. Anyway, he got accused of robbing a bank so he would have money to go to Chiefs games. Got arrested, and then he was kind of put on house arrest, I guess, and he is broken out of his ankle monitor and is on the run. I mean, it is an unreal story. I put a YouTube short out on it with a few details. Go check it out. It's fascinating, man. The real question, Tatum, is will he evade police and make it to week 1 and get to a game at Arrowhead? Because that would be electric. Shout out Dale Webb Jr. for a super chat. He says, name a defensive tackle in this draft that would match up with Chris Jones. Play well next to him. If you want to get a true one-tech like Siaki Ika out of Baylor, he's kind of a bruiser that you could line up there. I like Kalijah Kancey, but he's a similar type of player to Chris Jones. Jalen Carter, does he fall to 31? You could play him at one-tech. He's gained some weight. So, yeah, who knows, man.